Thank you very much. First of all, Mr. Jones, what a haunting, disturbed, demented movie you made, and I absolutely loved it. I love horror. I love psychological horror, and The Feast is one of the best I've seen in a while. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you, George.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to. I don't want to spoil anything, but I won't. But that final shot, like, it's gonna stay with me for a long time. And I wanted to ask you about the way you framed it because it was sad, but at the same time comes as a warning. Was that the intended feeling for you?
Absolutely. I mean, what's quite interesting about that final shot is that it wasn't originally the final shot. And that was one of the last shots that we did that day. And there was a whole sequence after, as per the script, there was a whole sequence after that shot whereby we saw another workman, just like the beginning, which was an echo, kind of like a bookend. So it's an echo of the first scene where we see the workman arrive. So we saw in the original scene that was at the end of the piece, the workman arrived and he got out of his van and he saw a pile of clothes on the floor, and he went over to by the drill and picked up the clothes. And as he was picking up the clothes, just in the back of shot, there was Caddy, and that was the end. And then anyway, we shot it, and it took, I don't know, 2-3 hours to shoot, and then we did this final scene, what became the final scene with Anis. And just some sort of alchemy, some sort of magic happened, and she, I asked her to look quite close to the lens, but she looked into the lens, and then she started to get very upset. And I thought, there you go, that's the end of the film. And it was, it's funny, isn't it, how you find those things? And it seemed to me to be a fitting end. You know, she breaks the fourth wall, she looks deep into the lens, and thereby deep into our souls as an audience. And she asks the question, are you happy that you're doing this to me, i.e. nature? I've just given it away. But no, anyway, never mind.
No. It's okay because exactly what you said. Because she doesn't look angry. Like you did not go into the Kubrick stare, which has nothing wrong with it. But you choose to end it with her looking at the camera in this, sad, depressed way. After everything that happened, she's still sad, and it really ingrained into my mind after looking at her like that.
It's really good. I'm really pleased that you said this because you've really got it. And I think there's a sadness to that moment that is unbearable in a way. And even, I think even after, a lot of people about this movie have said, oh, we don't really empathize with the characters by and large. But it's in that moment with Caddy, I think you go, okay, I understand now what motivated her to do what she did to this family. And it's a key moment in the piece, and I'm really pleased that it's affected you as much as it has.
Well, it did. Now, making movies is always a risk, and then you add being an independent film. But on top of that, you make it on Welsh, like a language that very few people speaks, even in Welsh. So why did you felt that it had to be filmed in Welsh?
Well, it has to be filmed in Welsh because I'm Welsh and I speak Welsh, and the writer Roger Williams, he speaks Welsh, and all the actors speak Welsh, and it's who we are, and that was part of the motivating factor for making this film. I wanted to tell the world about Wales and our culture and our history and our heritage, and yes, maybe commercially. It is maybe a challenging choice, but actually, I think it's paid off for us because it makes our film quite unique. It makes it culturally very specific, and I often have Bertolt Brecht, the playwright, the German playwright, sort of resonating in my head, and he said something like, in order to be universal, you have to be local first. And I think the fact that this is in Welsh and Welsh folklore is in the DNA of this piece, I think that gives it a certain specificity and a specialness that seems to be communicating across sort of cultural and linguistic barriers.
And I would like to add to that as an audience that the cadence of the Welsh language, it fits so well with the atmosphere that you created, and I actually love that one. Was one of the things that I loved about it.
Oh,
The
brilliant.
Feast is a movie about class warfare, about class division. But what I like is that it's not only about those in the top versus those in the bottom, but also how even between the top they will fight among themselves. I mean, that scenes with the businessman. I don't want to give too much away, but the scene with the businessman just going at it at the plate, and he doesn't care what they're putting on the plate. That really struck me, and I feel that the Feast is also a movie about greed as much as anything else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love it when I speak to people who really get the movie. You know, it is in many ways a contemporary morality tale. It's about the importance of being true to yourself and your people, and gives a stark warning against the consequences of greed and avarice. I suppose at its heart, it is a piece about environmentalism and sustainability, about how we use the land and abuse the earth. And then in its sort of blood-soaked conclusion, it warns us that this planet will sooner or later take revenge against humanity for the devastation that we have caused. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is part socio-political commentary. It is part environmental politics, and it does create a link. And I think there is a link, actually. Just thinking about what's happened in Glasgow this week at COP26, there is a link between environmental justice and social justice. And the film definitely makes that connection.
Yeah. There's so few dialogue in the film, and Katie even has less lines. And I wanted to ask you, that was also another comment on class division, in which this wealthy family, they welcome her with open arms and a smile, but they don't care what she has to say. She doesn't, they don't ask her almost anything. Was
No,
that done on purpose?
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, they're not interested. I mean, Caddy turns up, and like you said, Glenda talks at her. The boys are intrigued with her, but they all have their agenda. You know, Gwairith wants to have sex with her. Gito wants to see if he can source some drugs for him. You know, Gwyn, the father, he is attracted to her. But they all live in this house, but they don't necessarily connect with each other. And I think that goes for Caddy as well. They don't really connect in a proper way with Caddy. And therefore she's sort of, as a force, or as the force that she becomes, she's hiding in plain sight in many ways, you know. And we, as a more sensitive audience than the audience she has in the family, we can see that there's something amiss, and that we can read the signs. But the family they're not very good at reading those signs at all.
And finally, the feast remind me of Midsummer in the sense that it takes from folklore to tell a story in modern time using old tales. So why did you choose this particular folk tale from Wales
Well,
instead of
yeah,
others?
interestingly, it's a sort of an amalgamation of folk tales and of elements and of characters. It doesn't reference one story in particular from Welsh folk heritage, but I guess the character who is most like Caddy in Welsh folk tales. And there's a body of literature called the Mabinogion. The character who's most like Caddy is the character of Blodeuwedd, and she is created from nature, from the flowers, as a consequence of a curse that a mother puts on her son, and says that he won't get a wife amongst humans. And basically, what happens is that his magician friend creates this force in the shape of Blodeuwedd, and of course she's frustrated that she's nature personified, and she's frustrated in this body, and therefore she takes revenge against the husband and the magician who's created her. So that you know, the character of Blodeuwedd is very definitely to be found within Caddy, but it's not a specific tale. But the one thing that's notable, I think, is that and it struck me very early on when we were thinking about this film, is that Welsh literature from the 1300s, and it still exists. You know, we can still read it now, because unlike English, Welsh is very similar to how it was back in the 1300s. Welsh literature is inherently horrific. And we think of horror as being, I guess, as being an American form, an American genre, but actually there's something inherently horrific and horrorful about the literature that you get from Wales. So I guess I've tried to reclaim horror as a Welsh form. Yeah, I don't think you guys will be happy about that, but that's yeah, you know, I think we can share it.
Well, I'm very happy about it. Again, thank you very much for the interview. Thank you very much for making this movie. As an old horror fan, I absolutely loved it, and I'm very, very happy that you did exactly what you just said. So thank you very much, Mr. Haven.
Thank you, George. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.